Helen Dalton is the independent member for Murray. It's getting pretty hot, Helen, as we approach a 25 March election date. You're hoping to hang on to the seat.
Absolutely. So, it's going to be very interesting. So we're working really hard and getting the messages out to people in the community. And, of course, a lot of the community know exactly what we've done over the past 4 years.
Well, and what's some of the value that you have achieved as an independent over the last 4 years for the Murray voters?
Now, it's been interesting. In the past 4 years, I've been able to bring in about $1.4 billion of funding into the electorate, compared to a miserable $200 million by the Nats for the previous term. So we've really achieved 7 times the funding. So that's incredible, being an independent. When I first started as an independent, I didn't really, that was in 2015, I ran for the election, and I didn't really know or understand the value of an independent. I just thought that was something that we should do. We should have more of them. But I really do now that if we can keep Murray marginal, then the money will flow in.
Now, just on that money that's flowing in, you've expressed concern about all the Nationals making spending pledges during this election campaign, but surely that's exactly what you want when a seat is marginal.
Well, I do, but the spending is really over the top, and it's almost around now close to the election day, and a lot of these promises will not be honoured. We know that. So a lot of pork barrelling with these announcements, and they're not often well thought out, so they're superficial and a desperate attempt to win back the voters. So we really do need planned, well-coordinated announcements that make sure that we get the biggest bang for our dollar. And often we get the crumbs, just like trinkets and beads, and lost opportunities. So just yesterday they announced some funding for the Denny Hospital for an upgrade. We need a new hospital with at least $150 million for a co-located hospital near the Denny ambulance station. So, it needs to be really well thought out so that we can make that dollar go as far as we can.
Well, when it comes to hospitals, I would have thought that almost any pledge almost couldn't be big enough when it comes to getting more spending, not just on Deniliquin, but a whole bunch of other hospitals where we've had such a dire situation, not only in terms of health outcomes, but also just getting the staff and keeping them in the area.
Well, that's right. And the problem with all of this is, you may build a hospital, but we really do need the staffing of that, and as they're building hospitals, they're at the same time downgrading services. Now, the hospital, I would think in Denny, I have heard whispers on the street that it'll only really be a Band-Aid centre, and people will be still asked to go to further afield to Bendigo or to Wagga, which is hours and hours of travel. So what we really do need are the hospitals upgraded with better services so that people don't have to travel often across to a different state.
Now, if it came down to Chris Minns leading Labor as the next Premier, or indeed Dom Perrottet and the Liberal National Coalition, which way would you lean in that direction? You've said it would depend what they're putting forward for Murray. You've certainly been able to see plenty where it's been pledged so far. Which party's impressed you the most?
Well, it'll depend on what they do have to offer. So it's not, for me, it's not about left or right. It's about right and wrong. And I will vote with whoever for the interests, 100% of the time for the interests of the Murray electorate. And we'll just see what they have to offer.
So is that suggesting you might look for something additional to be put in? I mean, we could have a minority government situation. The coalition's in minority at the moment. Would you be looking for something more than they've pledged during the campaign to get over the line to who would have confidence to form government?
Absolutely. This is the time where, if it is a hung parliament, they'll need my support, and I'll be looking to see what they can offer us. And of course, before my term, 37 years of national neglect, we've got a lot of catching up to do, and there's things that we should have delivered in this electorate years and years ago. So I'll be looking to get, the best deal for us. So it all depends on what they're going to offer.
Now, speaking of Deniliquin earlier, the Mayor of Deniliquin is your National Party opponent in the form of Peter Betts. There's been some commentary speculation about whether she'll continue as the Mayor if she's successfully elected. What's your position on that? If she is successful, is that tenable?
Look, to be a part-time MP, you'll only be part-time half the time. It's a massive electorate. 110,000 square kilometres, bigger than the size of Scotland. you wouldn't be able to do the job well as a part-time MP. So really neglecting lots of areas in the electorate, because she's focusing on her mayoralship at Deniliquin, and whilst that's good for Denny, what about the rest of us? So I would suggest that it's a very, very poor form to think that you can do that. And I have spoken to other MPs in Victoria, that those that have been involved in councils, they've stood down from their mayoralship and stood down from their commitments on the shires because it's such a big job. And we need to be working in the best interests of the people of Murray.
Yeah, I would look to check those out, those quick concerns about her mayoralship when we speak with Peter Betts fairly soon. I know housing, just lastly, has been a major concern in the electorate. What have you seen from the other parties so far? Or what have you even pledged yourself in terms of what we could actually achieve to address some pretty dire housing shortages, particularly, I think you mentioned previously, even paramedics not even having housing to stay in?
That's right. Well, we've certainly had a housing forum in Griffith to try and highlight some of the issues with housing. So there's not one single fix for the housing crisis. It'll take a multi-pronged approach. So we need urgent approvals for social and community housing. And we need innovative solutions such as modular housing or tiny housing structures that can be built relatively quickly. And we need the support from councils to fast-track the approval processes. There's also issues of Crown land. All those things go into the mix. So we need to review large lot existing social housing at the moment and replace with medium density of social and affordable housing. So there's lots that we can look at, but the government has had decision paralysis with all of this, and they need to actually make a decision and try and put money into social and affordable housing for a start that would free up other homes, and also to really repair and maintain some of those houses that are abandoned because they haven't bothered to update them and keep them functional.
It does seem it's going to come down to the state government putting some money on the table, whoever is able to form government, to improve the housing stock, because it's not necessarily going to be easy for councils to provide all the infrastructure when they've got rate pegs and they're seriously stretched.
That's right. All levels of government have to be working together to solve this. And just a few things for a start would make a big difference. And even just down to TAFE. They've gutted TAFE. We need those kids doing those apprenticeships, such as carpentry and plumbing and electrical apprenticeships, to make sure that we've got people on the ground in our communities to build these houses and maintain the ones that we already have.
Well, Helen Dalton is the independent member for Murray. The election's on the 25th of March. Early voting is open very soon. Thanks for joining us today on Flow.
No, thank you, Ricky.